Hey, what's up you guys? My name is Zeta, and today I'm going to be sharing with you 8 things to look for when choosing a research advisor or principal investigator. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and if you're new here, hi, I'm so glad you're here. My name is Zeta, and I am a first-year immunology and microbiology PhD student. Before starting my PhD, I worked in several different labs throughout undergrad, and I worked with a lot of different PIs. And I'm here to tell you that your research advisor is so important and critical for your overall experience in research. And now that I'm getting started with my PhD, I'm actually about to have to look for a new research advisor who's going to be my advisor throughout my PhD process. And I'm about to be starting lab rotations where I'm going to have to choose what mentor I'm going to have throughout my PhD. And so these tips are really important for you, but they're also a reminder to me when I'm about to go and choose a research advisor. Honestly, in my opinion, I think your research advisor is even more important than your actual research project. I heard it put to me this way, and honestly, I couldn't agree more. Choosing a research advisor is almost like choosing a partner to marry. It is that important. Having a good advisor will help you so much throughout your process and will help you so much when research can be a little bit difficult. And I think it is extremely important to find a advisor who really fits well and works well with you. And so here's some advice on what to look for when trying to choose a research advisor. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to want to consider is their mentoring style. Now you're going to notice that a lot of these tips are kind of ambiguous, and that is because a good research advisor for me may not be a good research advisor for you. And you're going to really want to sit and ask yourself, what is it that I need in a research lab? And so here's some things that you want to consider. What do you need for yourself? And then you're going to want to look and see, does that mentor match that for you? So now back to what I was saying about mentoring styles. You're first going to want to ask yourself, what kind of mentoring style do I need? And then you want to look for an advisor who has that mentoring style. So what do I mean by mentoring style? What should I be looking for? You want to be thinking, is this person very hands-on? Or is this person very hands-off? Is this person someone who is going to be a little bit more micromanagey? Or is this person going to be extremely difficult to even find? Some PIs are the type of mentors who prefer to show you how to do stuff in the lab themselves and work with you and be very hands-on teaching for you, whereas other mentors rather just give you a protocol or just kind of talk to you about it, and then you go and do it yourself, and then they'll check base with you every now and then. And so you want to ask yourself, what is it that you need, and what is it that you look for? Another thing you're going to want to consider is this research PI flexible with their mentoring style? Some PIs may right out the gate be extremely hands-on, but if you communicate to them and say, hey, I'm actually looking for someone who will let me be a little bit more independent, and I would prefer if I could just talk to you about this and check base maybe every couple of weeks. Some PIs may completely switch up and be like, oh, okay, if that's what you need, then I'm here for you. And you'll find that actually is more common than you think, that a lot of PIs are extremely flexible with you on how you want to communicate with them and how often you want to touch base with them. And so just try to make it clear to them that these are the things you are looking for, and try to think to yourself, are they being receptive to the needs that I'm asking for? Or are they still being micromanagey when I'm asking for independence, or vice versa? If you're asking for them to actually help you in the lab and they're not available all the time, then you want to consider that maybe this isn't a good lab environment for you. Now, the next thing you're going to want to consider is, how does this PI treat their students? Now, when it comes to this, you're probably going to want to ask other lab students who are already in the lab and have been in the lab for a while. And actually, I heavily encourage you to always talk to the current lab students when considering a PI, because sometimes A PI can sound really good on paper and can talk really good to you before you're in their lab, but you don't really know what goes on unless you are actually in it for a long period of time. And so you want to go ahead and get some advice from the other lab students because they'll tell you. They will be honest. Most of the lab students will tell you everything. In fact, I also encourage you to ask other lab students about that PI because word gets around when a PI is kind of bad, which I'm not saying sometimes a PI might not be a good fit for you, but that doesn't mean they're a bad PI. But when they have a reputation for being extremely mean or rude to their students, word gets around. So you could ask other labs and they'll tell you the honest truth about them. I honestly hate having to say this because I can't imagine a PI being mean to their students, but unfortunately, that is also more common than you think. And so you're going to want to watch out for that. And so I would ask some of the current lab students, do they feel comfortable admitting failure to their PI? And this isn't about a personal thing because sometimes people don't personally feel comfortable admitting failure, but you want to know, are these people afraid of their PI? Does their PI yell at them or talk down on them? Or some PIs I've even heard will put students against each other, like competition, who can publish a paper first. You don't want to be in that environment. That environment, even if the lab is phenomenal and publishes so many papers and has so much money, I'm sorry, your mental sanity will not do well in a lab like that. Just something that I have to put in there because unfortunately it is way more common than you would think. And so you're really going to want to consider, what do the students have to say about that PI, and do they think the communication back and forth is mostly positive? Do they get really good feedback, or is it an overall negative experience, and do they feel like there's a lot of competition and a lot of problems with admitting failure and not being able to communicate well with their PI? The next thing you're going to want to consider is, what does your PI expect with work-life balance? Does your PI expect you to work a set schedule, a 9 to 5, or is your PI very flexible? Come in whenever you want, as long as the experiments get done. Does your PI expect you to come in every single weekend, 7 days a week, or is it just kind of every now and then you might need to work the weekend because you're falling behind on experiments, or sometimes there just needs to be work that needs to get done? Does your PI expect you to work 24/7 all the time, or does your PI respect a set boundary that you have? If you have the expectation, I only want to work 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, I'm going to let you know right now, if you're doing a PhD, it's usually always subject to change when it comes to scheduling, just because experiments are kind of a hot mess when it comes to timing. Sometimes the timing is not always a 9 to 5 favorable schedule. However, my point is if you have boundaries set, does your PI respect them? Or does your PI expect you to work 24/7? Or does your PI expect you to work the weekends? Some people are okay with working the weekends, whereas other people are like, no, that is a no-no zone. Do not touch my weekends. You need to get a schedule down. Figure out, what does your research advisor expect when it comes to work-life balance, and does it match with what you expect for work-life balance? With this, you're also going to want to consider, is there vacation time? Does your research advisor expect you to work through Christmas? Or is there reasonable vacation days? Or also, does your PI expect you to be responsive at very late hours in the night? Some research advisors expect you to answer their email even if their email is sent to you at midnight. These are all things that come with work boundaries. You just want to make sure that your potential research advisor respects your work boundaries and what kind of precedent you set when it comes to how often you're willing to work and what your expectations are for your work. This next thing to consider has to do with your personal goals. You're going to want to look at, where do the research students end up after they're done with that research lab? Now, if you're an undergrad, this probably doesn't really apply to you. But if you're in a PhD program, you're really going to want to consider, where do the students end up after they're done with their research lab? Do most of them go to industry, or do most of them go do a postdoc and end up in the academia track? The reason considering this is important is because your research advisor is one of your best connections to having a strong network for after you're done with that research lab. So whether you're an undergrad or in your PhD, you're not going to stay with that research advisor forever. You probably have an end goal on what kind of careers you're looking for. And so you're going to want to have a research advisor who is really good at preparing you for that career that you want. And so if most of their students go on to academic tracks and you're interested in academia, that might be a really good fit for you because most of their students are successful at pursuing an academic career after working with that research advisor. The same thing is true for industry. If a lot of their students go into industry, that PI probably has a really good industry network that can get you plugged in and having a successful career in industry. Now, it's not always as black and white. A lot of labs have a mix of some students going to industry and some students going to academia. And so you're going to want to have that conversation early on with your potential research advisor, just discussing your career goals and get a feel for if that research advisor is comfortable with being able to mentor you and prepare you for a successful career after their research lab. All right, this next one can be a bit touchy. And in fact, it's always a touchy subject. I feel like it's always up in the air, but you are going to want to get a feel for and honestly have these really hard conversations with your potential research advisor about the funding in the lab. You want to know, are they getting recent grants? When was their last grant and how long does their grant last? Is this lab publishing? And does this lab have funding to support you in your research project? Now, this will obviously look different if you're an undergraduate doing research versus if you're in your PhD doing research. But you want to get an idea for the funding situation in the lab, and you want to get an idea of what kind of funding situation you need. For example, if you are a PhD student, you're probably looking for a lab that is fully funded and can fund you for your entirety of your PhD because you are a full-time researcher at that point. Whereas in undergrad, all the research labs I was only in one lab that was funded. And so I was doing a lot of research for free and I didn't care because I was an undergraduate. But you're going to want to know what is the situation with the lab funding and are they getting a lot of grants or are you going to need to be writing grants? Because some labs, you're going to have to be the one getting the money for the lab and getting the money for yourself if you are to complete your PhD project. And so you just want to kind of get an idea with what you're getting into when it comes to the funding situation. You don't need to know every single thing about the funding, but overall, you're just going to want to know where is the support coming from and what kind of support is being brought in for your project. All right, this next one's going to be a quick one, but this is where you're going to want to consider your overall interest in the research topic at hand. Now, you may be wondering, why didn't I start with this tip? Because it's actually not that important. It's important, which is why I'm including it, but it's not as important as all the other things that I just mentioned. All of the other things that I just mentioned, if you have a great research topic, those other things will ruin your research experience. If you have a horrible work-life balance or horrible funding situation or horrible mentorship, it doesn't matter if your project is amazing. You're probably still going to hate your research experience. And so that's why I put it here, but it is important. You want to know, are you at least interested in the research topic that you will be working with? You don't need to know everything going into your research topic, but you just need to know, am I overall curious? Is this something that I could enjoy studying? That's really all you need. You just need to have an overall curiosity and desire to learn and contribute to that field. And so try to figure out what the research area of that lab is and ask yourself, do you even find it interesting? Because if not, then it's really kind of a waste of your time because you're not going to enjoy it. But you want to just have just an initial curiosity and desire to do some work in that lab. This last one is so important. All of the tips that I shared are important, but this one is especially important. What is the lab culture? You're probably not gonna know the lab culture unless you're doing a rotation or having some experience working in the lab before you commit to the lab, which I would heavily encourage you to do that. If you have the option to just shadow a student and just kind of be in the lab before you commit to a lab, please do that. It will help you figure out a lot of the things that I'm talking about in this video if you actually have the experience being in the lab before having the pressure of needing to commit to it. Okay, so what is lab culture and how do you look for it? So the lab culture is just going to be the overall vibe in the lab. And what to look for when I say vibe is kind of just how everybody treats each other in the lab. Is it a very collaborative environment or is it extremely competitive? Does it feel like your lab colleagues are against you, or does it feel like everyone is very friendly? And do people share reagents? That's like a really good way to pick up on that. Are people really helpful when you ask a question? Are they willing to stop what they're doing and help you? If you need something, are they willing to share something with you? Or does it feel very negative when you ask for help or ask for something in the lab? Does it feel like everyone is extremely on edge around each other? Or also with that, what's the size of the lab? I know that's kind of weird, but some people prefer being in bigger labs because it has a lot more potential for friends and there's a lot of people around you. There's always resources for you to be able to ask for help versus some labs are extremely small and you might only have 1 or 2 people who work in your lab, and so you might be doing a lot of work on your own and by yourself where you won't have somebody there working beside you or with you. And that might not be a good environment for you. It just depends on what you need socially as far as what you need in your workspace. But you really want to consider how people treat each other in the lab. The same thing goes with meetings. If you have the chance to join a lab meeting before committing to the lab, it will give you a chance to see how everybody talks to each other. How well do other people know their lab colleagues' projects? Are they extremely social, collaborative, helpful, or are they very standoffish? They don't really know anything about anybody's project and they don't really care to know and they aren't very helpful to begin with. Or are they rude? Are they rude to each other? You don't want to be in a lab environment where everybody's mean. That's really hard to get work done and be productive in. So these are all just things to consider when it comes to the lab culture and your overall lab environment. And that's it for this video. These are all of the things that I would look for and consider when choosing a lab PI or research advisor, whatever you want to call it. Again, I'm going to reiterate this. Choosing a lab PI is like choosing someone to marry. It is extremely important and one of the most important decisions you make when you are having a career in research. It will make or break your overall research experience and how you feel waking up every day, going to the lab. I know for me, I had no idea what I was getting into, but I ended up loving research, and I think that was just because I had an extremely good research advisor who made it so easy for me to love coming to the lab every day or in between classes. So all that to say, choosing a research advisor is extremely important, and you really want to consider some of these things when choosing a research advisor. But anyways, that's all that I have for you today, and thank you so much for staying to the end of this video. And if you like this video and you want to see more from me, please like and subscribe. I post videos every single Monday. If you work in a research lab and you think that I missed anything, please leave a comment down below what you looked for and what you considered when looking for a good research advisor. And until next time, remember, keep asking questions, keep learning, and stay curious.